Are you seriously asking me this in front of everyone? I stared at my father across the long oak dining table, my pulse pounding so hard it felt like it might break through my ribs. The laughter and clinking of silverware had died the second he spoke those words. Harper, the family business is drowning. We need you to step in and save it. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. My uncles, aunts, cousins, all staring as though my decision would seal the fate of generations. The weight of their judgment pressed down on me, suffocating. I swallowed hard, the sting of betrayal already burning my throat. My father's voice hadn't carried even a shred of warmth. Not gratitude. Not humility. Just cold expectation. And then, as if twisting the knife, my younger brother Mason leaned back in his chair with that smug grin he always wore. Well, she's the one with savings. It's not like she does anything important with her life anyway. A few muffled laughs rolled around the table. My mother's lips twitched in what looked dangerously close to agreement. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the glass of wine in Mason's face. But instead, I inhaled sharply, tightened my grip on the edge of the table, and said through gritted teeth, "Fine. 150,000. I'll wire it tomorrow morning." The words left my mouth heavy, bitter. The tension snapped like static through the room. My father leaned back, smug relief flashing in his eyes, while Mason raised his glass as though he'd just won something. I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the polished wood floor. "Don't thank me," I hissed, "because none of you ever do." That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why I kept giving pieces of myself to people who never gave anything back. The walls of my childhood bedroom, where I'd once pinned college acceptance letters and written lists of dreams, felt like a cage. The next day, I transferred the money. $150,000. Years of working late nights, cutting corners, skipping vacations, gone in seconds with the click of a button. And then I saw it. Mason's shiny new car parked in the driveway, its chrome grille catching the sunlight like a slap across the face. He leaned against it, laughing with his friends, bragging loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. "Can you believe it? Dad finally trusted me enough to let me handle some things at the company," he boasted. "Guess who's in line for everything now?" The rage inside me coiled tight, like a storm waiting to tear the roof off the house. That evening, as if fate hadn't mocked me enough, my family threw a party. A full celebration, wine flowing, music blasting, relatives praising Mason as if he were the savior of the family legacy. I stood off to the side, the taste of bile sharp in my throat, my fists clenched so tightly my nails cut into my palms. Then the crowd shifted. Heads turned. The laughter thinned to silence. My husband, Lucas, walked through the door. He didn't look furious. He didn't even look surprised. He looked calm, calculated, a folder in his hand, the kind that meant business. He set it down on the table with a controlled thud. His voice cut through the silence, steady and deliberate. "The signed ownership transfer," he said, "effective immediately." Every glass froze midair, and for the first time in years, I smiled. The silence after Lucas's words was suffocating, like the air had been sucked out of the room. My father blinked, his fork halfway to his mouth, frozen. Mason's smirk cracked, his eyes darting between the folder and Lucas's face, searching for some sign that this was a cruel joke. "What? What do you mean, ownership transfer?" Mason stammered, his voice higher than usual, like a child caught stealing. Lucas's gaze didn't waver. Calm, steady, precise. "It means," he said, opening the folder and sliding the papers across the polished table, "that Harper now holds the majority stake in Collins Enterprises. Every asset, every decision runs through her." A ripple of shock ran through the relatives. Chairs shifted, glasses clinked against plates, whispers filled the corners of the dining hall. I let the weight of the moment sink in. My chest heaved with a mix of fury and vindication. Emotions I'd kept buried for years finally clawing to the surface. For once, the spotlight wasn't on Mason's empty charm or my father's iron grip. It was on me. Richard, my father, slammed his palm on the table. The wine in his glass rippled violently. This is ridiculous. She doesn't know how to run a business. She's soft. She's sentimental. Lucas, what kind of games are you playing? Lucas leaned in slightly, his voice measured. It's no game, Richard. You were desperate. You signed away control the moment you begged Harper for her money. This is the consequence of underestimating her. I locked eyes with my father, my voice finally finding its strength. You wanted my money, Dad, not me. You never wanted me. Well, now you've got both, and I won't be ignored anymore. Mason shot up from his chair, his voice trembling but loud. This is insane. I've been preparing my whole life to take over. You can't just hand her everything. Preparing? I snapped, my words laced with venom. You bought a car with money meant to keep our company alive. That's your preparation? A shiny toy for your ego? Gasps echoed from around the table. Mason's face flushed crimson, and for once he couldn't think of a clever retort. His lips parted, then sealed shut, his chest heaving in shallow bursts. Elaine, my mother, finally spoke, her tone sharp but fragile. Harper, don't do this. Your father has worked so hard for this business. Mason, he's young, yes, but he has potential. We can guide him. I turned to her, my throat tightening. Guide him? You've guided him into arrogance, into entitlement. While I scraped and fought for every dollar, you praised him for simply existing. Don't lecture me about guidance. The room seemed to tilt, the weight of my words hanging heavy. Then Lucas added, his voice cutting clean through the tension. The documents are legally binding. Nothing you say changes that. Richard's face turned pale, his lips pressed into a thin line. He looked at Mason, then at Elaine, then at me. For the first time in my life, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. Fear of losing control, fear of being powerless. I stood slowly, deliberately, letting the silence stretch. My heels clicked against the hardwood as I moved toward the head of the table. His chair. My father's chair. Without asking permission, I pulled it back and sat down. The leather was warm beneath me, carrying the weight of decades of decisions, dominance, and dismissals. I leaned forward, clasped my hands, and said quietly but firmly, from this moment on, things are going to change. The relatives shifted uneasily, unsure whether to look at me or avoid my gaze altogether. Mason collapsed back into his chair, his face buried in his hands. Elaine stared at me, lips trembling but silent. Richard finally broke the silence, his voice low and dangerous. You'll regret this, Harper. Power is not meant for the weak. I met his glare without flinching. No, Dad. Power isn't meant for the selfish. The tension snapped again, this time in my favor. Lucas placed a steady hand on my shoulder, his touch grounding me. Harper isn't weak, he said firmly, his eyes locked on Richard. She's stronger than anyone in this room, and it's time all of you learned that. For once, no one argued, no one dared. The party that had started with celebration ended in silence, the clinking of glasses long forgotten. No toasts, no laughter. Just the quiet reality that the daughter they'd dismissed had become the one they now had to answer to. And deep down, I promised myself, this was only the beginning. The next morning, the house felt different. The walls that once echoed with Mason's bragging and my father's booming authority now hummed with an uneasy quiet. I could feel eyes on me as I walked through the kitchen, relatives whispering in corners, cousins avoiding my gaze. Mason stormed in, his hair a mess, his face red from lack of sleep. He slammed his phone on the counter. Do you realize what you've done? His voice cracked, the words spilling like venom. I was supposed to meet with investors today. They won't even take my calls now. They said every decision has to go through you. I didn't flinch. I poured myself coffee, the rich steam rising like calm in the middle of his storm. Good, I said, my voice steady. That means the system's working. He grabbed the mug out of my hand and shattered it against the floor, shards skittering across the tiles. You think you're smarter than me? You think you can run this family? You're pathetic, Harper. Lucas appeared in the doorway, his voice sharp. Watch your tone! Mason spun on him, his fists clenched. Stay out of this. You don't belong here. You're not family. Lucas stepped forward, shoulders squared, his calmness more dangerous than Mason's rage. I belong with Harper. And if you want to test that, you'll lose. The air was thick, suffocating. Mason's nostrils flared, his chest heaving, but he didn't move. He knew Lucas wasn't bluffing. I bent down, picked up a shard of the broken mug, and set it on the counter between us. This is what you do with everything you're given, I said coldly. You break it. And then you expect someone else to clean it up. Not anymore. His face twisted, but he said nothing. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. By noon, I was at the office. Collins Enterprises, the company my father built, the company I'd just inherited control of, looked different now. The employees' eyes lingered as I walked through the glass doors. Some curious, some doubtful, some quietly hopeful. My father was already there, seated in the corner office, as though the papers Lucas handed over meant nothing. He didn't look up when I entered. You're not welcome here, he said flatly, flipping through documents that no longer bore his name. I closed the door behind me, the click echoing like a final verdict. Whether you welcome me or not doesn't matter. This is mine now. His jaw tightened. You'll burn this place to the ground. You don't know what it takes. I stepped closer, placing my hands on his desk. No, Dad, I know exactly what it takes. I've been watching you cut corners, play favorites, and drown in arrogance. I won't make those mistakes. For the first time, his mask cracked. He looked up, his eyes bloodshot, his mouth opening but no words coming out. He knew I was right. I straightened, turning toward the door. From now on, every employee, every decision, every future step goes through me. You can either accept that, or you can step aside. Behind me, his voice came low, bitter. You'll regret this, Harper. Family loyalty runs deeper than contracts. I stopped in the doorway, the words sinking into me like shards of ice. Then I turned back, my voice steady. Funny. I never once saw loyalty from you. The office was silent as I walked out, but I could feel his stare burning holes into my back. That evening, another gathering formed at the house. Relatives were restless, anxious, their wine glasses trembling in their hands. Mason sat in the corner, sulking, his phone buzzing with unanswered calls. Elaine paced, muttering that the family was falling apart. I entered quietly, but the moment they saw me, the room hushed. Every eye tracked me like prey, or maybe predator. I stood tall, my voice slicing through the silence. You all threw a party for Mason when you thought he saved the family. You all cheered for him while he wasted what I sacrificed. Tonight you'll sit here in silence and watch as the person you dismissed takes control. Richard stood, his glass shaking. This isn't control. This is betrayal. Betrayal? I shot back, my words sharp as a blade. No, betrayal is asking your daughter for money while mocking her behind her back. Betrayal is celebrating a son who never worked a day in his life while belittling the one who did. Betrayal is calling me weak, until you needed me. The room fell to ashes. No one spoke. No one moved. Lucas stepped beside me, placing the folder back on the table. He opened it, showing every signature, every seal, every legal binding. There's no turning back, he said quietly. You all wanted her money. Now you'll answer to her power. My father's hand trembled as he set his glass down, the liquid inside swirling but untouched. For the first time in decades, no one dared raise a toast, and I knew, deep down, this was just the beginning of their reckoning. The following week, I didn't return to the house. I stayed downtown at the office that now carried my authority. I worked late, building strategies, meeting with lawyers, restructuring departments my father had let rot under negligence. Every contract, every email, every policy had my fingerprints now. By Friday, the first shockwave hit. A press release went out, my name officially listed as CEO of Collins Enterprises. My phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters, business partners, investors. Some doubted me, but most wanted meetings. They liked the idea of new blood after decades of corruption and stagnation. Back at the house, Mason was unraveling. I knew because my cousin texted me a video. Mason screaming at a bartender at some expensive lounge, drunk, bragging that, "My sister stole everything from me." He looked pitiful. I didn't respond. That night, I finally returned home. The house that once belonged to them was mine now. The lights glowed warm through the windows, but the energy inside was icy. I opened the door to find my father, mother, and Mason sitting in the living room. No relatives this time, just them. The true culprits of my pain. Richard's eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tense. "You've made your point," he said, his voice low. "You've humiliated us. You've taken everything. What else do you want?" I set my bag down, my heels clicking against the hardwood as I stepped closer. "I don't want your apology. I don't want your approval. I want you to live with what you created. A family that only loved money until it destroyed them." Elaine's lip quivered. "You're our daughter. We were trying to protect the legacy." "Protect it?" I snapped, cutting her off. "You tried to bury me in it. You made me a tool, a wallet, and when I gave everything, you threw your praise at Mason like confetti. Don't tell me this is about legacy. This is about your pride." Mason shot up, trembling with rage. "You think you're better than us now? You're nothing without us." I turned slowly, my gaze locking on him, steady as steel. "No, Mason, I was nothing with you." The words landed like a blade. He staggered back, his fists clenched but useless. Lucas stepped through the doorway then, carrying another folder. He placed it on the coffee table with deliberate calm. "This," he said, "is the final piece. Harper now owns the house, the vehicles, the estate, every asset tied to Collins Enterprises. Everything is hers. You have nothing left to gamble with." Richard's face went white. Elaine gasped. Mason's eyes widened, then narrowed, like a cornered animal. "You wouldn't," Richard whispered, shaking his head. I stepped closer, my voice sharp. "I already did. You signed the papers yourself, Dad. You were too desperate to notice. And now, the empire you thought would belong to Mason belongs to me." The silence was deafening. Elaine collapsed into the couch, covering her face. Mason cursed under his breath, pacing like a trapped wolf. Richard stared at me, his lips trembling, the image of a man watching his world turn to dust. Finally, I said the words I'd carried for years. "You called me weak. You dismissed me. You made me feel invisible. But tonight you'll remember this. I'm the one who saved you when you asked. And I'm the one who ended you when you mocked me." Richard's glass slipped from his hand, shattering against the floor. No one rushed to clean it up. I turned toward the door, Lucas by my side, his steady presence grounding me. My voice carried one last time over the room. "From this moment forward, I'm not your daughter. I'm your consequence." And with that, I walked out, the sound of my heels striking the floor echoing like a closing chapter. The night air outside was sharp, alive, filled with freedom. For the first time, I wasn't weighed down by their judgment. For the first time, the power was mine, and I wasn't going to waste it on revenge alone. I looked at Lucas, his calm smile catching the glow of the porch light. "This is just the beginning," I whispered. He nodded. "Then let's build something better." Behind me, the house was silent. Inside, the family that had laughed at me was crumbling under the very silence they once forced on me. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. The girl they underestimated was gone. In her place stood a woman they'd never control again.